Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I have a very special guide for you PS Vita 2000 users, the second generation console, the slim model, and I finally got my hands on one, and I wanted to do a full guide, a step-by-step guide where it's not too edited, the video's like not polished. It's just a very step-by-step guide where we take our time and we talk about problems that we may come across while going through this process. And I've been really wanting to get this video out for you. I have a lot of people asking me, hey, why am I having this issue? And when I did the full guide on the PS Vita 1000, I never had any issues connecting to Content Manager, installing H-encore 2, and then downgrading to 3.60, installing Adrenaline, so on and so forth. I just never really saw problems. But as I added more Homebrew, I started to see little issues here and there, and I wanted to address those as much as I can on the channel. So today we're going to be going through that entire process of upgrading to 3.73, and I will explain why. And we're going to be installing H-encore 2 on our Windows computer. We're going to be doing this all on a Windows computer because it's just much easier. Mac or Linux is just more complicated. You have to compile all these files and it just gets really crazy, and we're just going to stay away from that. We're going to be installing a Homebrew application which allows us to see the factory firmware on our Vita. That way we can see the firmware that was first installed on our console, and we don't have to waste time if we're not able to go to 3.60 or 3.65. I'll also talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of 3.73 and 3.60. Just a disclaimer before we begin, the developers of these applications, these firmwares, etc., all this stuff, they're not liable for anything that happens to your console. So you are taking a risk on doing all this stuff, and bricking your console is very minimal unless you do something really stupid like not charge your console. And I highly recommend you guys getting your battery at 100%. You don't want to risk something happening to your Vita where it's a dud, and you don't want like the custom firmware installing and it dies right in the middle of it. That could cause serious damage to your console. We don't want that. And also, I won't be responsible for anything that happens to your Vita, so just make sure to take your time, ask any questions. If you're hesitant, if you're a little curious, if you're not sure about something, just completely stop, ask questions, comment down below, or just do your research online. There's a lot of different forums that talk about a lot of different issues with the Vita, so I'll link some of that stuff in the description down below for you. Before we begin, we have to make sure a few things. Number one, our Wi-Fi connection is working, our internet connection is working. Number two, you're able to sign in into your PSN account, and you can use a dummy, but going through this process of installing custom firmware, there is a little setting that spoofs our PSN account. That way we're not at the risk of getting banned. Number two, you have to make sure that Content Manager Assistant is fully working on your PC, and I do have a full video on how to install that and just solve some of the problems that you're having, and I'll have that video up here in this corner as well and in the description, so you can go take your time and getting that all figured out, because we're not going to be going through that step here in this video because it just takes too long. Now I'll explain to you why we need these different things to work for us. Number one, the Wi-Fi connection. We have to connect to the internet so we can sign into our PSN account. And why do we need our PSN account? We have to connect through Content Manager, and you have to log into your PSN account in order for you to use that application. And we need that application to download the Homebrew application that we're going to be using, which is H-encore 2, and install it on our system. And number three, obviously we need the Content Manager Assistant running full speed on our PC, because that's the only way to communicate from our Vita to our PC. Okay, so let's get started on taking a look at my firmware here real quick. And here is the main camera. I'm using a Canon DSLR camera to view the Vita here. Very nice. And obviously you can see me here in this camera. I have two cameras running, and down below is going to be my desktop, and I can switch back and forth here just so you know what's going on throughout this video, and I'll be switching back and forth. So we have the full view of the Vita here, and switching to this feed is gonna be giving me the full desktop view, which is a little cropped because I don't want to show too much stuff. Just keep it clean and simple. So on my computer I am running Windows 10 64-bit operating system, and it's working just fine. And just make sure something is up to date. If you're on Windows 7, you might have some issues, but I highly recommend you being on Windows 10. So just make sure that you have a very good, reliable computer for this entire process. Going back on our Vita, let's go to our settings here real quick. And you can update your system through the system update and updating using Wi-Fi. And that's just the easiest, best way to update your Vita. And why are we updating to 3.73? So anytime I was trying to sign in into my PlayStation Network account, I was running on 3.63, and it kept pushing me out saying, hey, you have to update your console. So there is no problem if you update to 3.73, because we're going to go through that process of downgrading, which is fairly easy. Also, I am assuming that most of you are on 3.73, new users, new enthusiasts to the scene, the homebrew scene, the Vita homebrew scene, and that's what I'm going by here. So going down to our system, we can take a look at our system information real quick. And you can see I'm running on 3.73. Very nice. Now that we have our Vita all set up, we can go to our desktop and download a few things to get started. So let's go to our desktop and click on the first link in the description down below, and that'll take you to the codedonut.com website. And scroll down below, and we're going to be downloading two different things. What you need: the latest release of Final HE. Click on this link here, and this will take you to github.com. Here's Final H-encore version 1.92, added support for 3.73, and we're going to be clicking on this 7Z file, and this is 6.01 megabytes. Click on that, and there we go, automatically downloading down below. Let's go back and install the USB driver for PS Vita, and this should download automatically. Perfect. There we go. And let's open up our folder. I already installed the drivers, so just run the PS Vita USB drivers here, go through the wizard, and you should be good to go. And for the Final HE 7-zip file, we will need some type of extracting program like 7-zip or WinRAR. And once you install that program on your computer, you can right click, and we want to 7-zip extract files. Hit OK, and you should get this new folder with this little icon inside. That is the program that we're going to be using. Let's move that to our desktop. Here it is. I'll move this right here. Let's open that up, and you'll see two different folders and the application we're going to be running. So right click and run as administrator. Hit yes when prompted. And now we have this little window that says, let's go, trim H-encore to 7 megabytes, waiting for connection to PS Vita. And that's what we're going to be doing next, is connecting our Vita to our computer. Make sure you have a very reliable USB cable. I have a lot of micro USB cables that do not work. They work on like smartphones and other devices, but for the Vita, it doesn't charge and it doesn't want to see the PC at all. So just make sure you have something that's working. Let's go back on our Vita here and connect. Oh, I can't see. There we go. Nice. Once connected, you should see Content Manager moving up and down, saying, hey, it's ready to connect, which is good. I already connected mine because I wanted to make sure everything was working before I made this video. So now we're going to Content Manager, and it says please wait, and it automatically connected me to the PC. So I'll go back, and once you're in Content Manager, you have two options. You have manage content on memory card or copy content, and we want to copy our content. And there's two different ways to connect to Content Manager. There's Wi-Fi and then there's USB connection. Let's see here. I want to show you. Okay, perfect. So then you'll be prompted this next window and you want to hit PC. And if you're not seeing the connection through USB cable, go through Wi-Fi connection. And after you get that all set up through Wi-Fi, restart your computer and reconnect your USB cable and it should work. That I was having so many problems with this Vita, and that's why I've been so late on this video, because I wanted to make sure everything was working. But yeah, that USB cable is a pain in the butt sometimes. So just make sure to connect through Wi-Fi and then reconnect through USB connection. And now you should see this new window pop up. We have connected device, copy content, backup utility. Now back on our desktop, we have final H-encore 2 reading our Vita. Very good, at 3.73. Now we're going to checkmark trim H-encore 2 to save a little bit of space, and we want to hit let's go. And it will begin downloading all sorts of different files and get it ready to be installed on your Vita. Okay, H-encore 2 has finished, and you'll see the 100% full green bar here. And back on our Vita, we will go to copy content from our PC to our PS Vita, and we're going to go to applications, and let's see here, let's go to PS Vita. And now you'll see the H-encore 2 application there. Perfect. So let's select that. And we will copy that over. The selected content items will be copied to this system. Hit OK. And now we just have to wait for it to copy over. There we go. Looks good. 2 minutes left. So once it brings you back to this window, we can exit out of Content Manager. It's a little difficult doing this upside down. And now you should see a new application with H-encore 2. Perfect. Okay, now the next step is we're going to be running the application. But before we do that, we have to hold the R button, the R trigger. So open that up and hold that R button, whoops, and hit start. And it says you cannot earn trophies in this application. Do you still want to start this application? Hit yes. And it should launch you into this little menu, the Bootstrap menu. And if you don't see that magenta screen kind of pop up there a little bit, or the pink screen that just goes in and out, and it crashes to white, or it crashes your Vita, you want to restart your console and run H-encore again holding R, because this is not perfect. It's going to be a little buggy here and there, but very good success here first time. Awesome. And now we're going to install Henkaku there, the second option. Hit X. Boom. Oops. Since I'm on a Japanese, I have to hit circle. There we go. Installing Henkaku. Perfect. And now we're going to, I'm sorry, very difficult to do this backwards, guys. We're going to download Vita Shell. So hit X or circle if you're in a Japanese version, and it will download Vita Shell and install that application. And this is our first Homebrew application on our Vita. Alright, so now we can exit out of here. Perfect. And now there's our Vita Shell application. So let's run Vita Shell real quick. So it looks good there. 2.2. Let's go back home. And we're going to go into our settings. And go into our new option, Henkaku settings. There. And we want to enable unsafe homebrew. Make sure that's checked off. And we have the enable PSN spoofing, which protects our PSN account from any bans or any problems. and we have enable version spoofing. Now under spoof version, we have 3.72, and we can change that to 3.73, but it really doesn't matter because we're already on 3.73, and this will work for us when we get to the downgrade later on. So let's check out our new firmware, and let's run the system here real quick, system information, and now you should see 3.73 with the Japanese lettering there, and that just represents the custom firmware we just installed. Very good. Let's go back home and rerun Vita Shell. Perfect. Now we got all of our folders ready to go. If you do see this, you are done. Congratulations. H-encore 2 is successfully installed on your Vita. And if you just want H-encore 2 and you don't want to move on to downgrade, you're basically done. And you can now start installing all sorts of games, homebrew, things like that. And I do have a full playlist on everything that I cover, plugins, homebrew games, homebrew applications, etc. in the playlist up here, and I'll have that in the description down below for you as well. So anytime you restart your system or it just dies on its own, you will have to run H-encore 2 every single time. One of the benefits of H-encore 2 is that it's not permanent custom firmware, so anytime you can uninstall this application and you're good to go. Now the cons weigh a little bit more because there's some homebrew that require you to be on a lower firmware, for example 3.60, 3.65, to run one of the best homebrew applications out there, and that's Adrenaline. And Adrenaline is basically the entire PSP interface on the Vita, and it's just insane how well that application works, and it hasn't been updated throughout the year, so you're stuck on 3.60 and 3.65, and you just lose out on that homebrew. And Adrenaline allows you to run obviously PSP games, PS1 games, no problem, and that's basically the best emulator and the only emulator for PSP games. So you will be missing out on that if you want to stick with 3.73 H-encore 2. But there's really no problems with this firmware. Most homebrew will work, but there are some that will require that lower firmware. So moving on to downgrading, for those of you who want to continue to downgrading to 3.60, the best firmware for your Vita, we first have to install an application that allows us to view our factory firmware. That way we save some time and we don't go through the entire process, and we go through the application that allows us to download or downgrade, and we see our factory firmware is not capable of doing that. So we're going to be doing that first and save us a little bit of time. Head on over to the VitaDB link to fingerprint version 0.02, and this application allows us to see all sorts of different information of our Vita, which is great. So download that VPK. Let's show in our folder. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is go back on our Vita, and in Vita Shell, let's press start here. And we want to change our select button to USB connection. If it's under FTP, just change that to USB. Very good. So let's go back by pressing start again, and we want to press select, and now we're connected to USB connection. You can see the folder pop up down below. Go back to our desktop. There it is. Perfect. And now we're just going to drag this into this folder just like that, our USB drive. There we go. And you can always just create a new folder and name it VPK, and throw all of your VPKs there and just back all of those up, and now we are good to go. Back on our Vita, let's cancel out of here, and you have to find your UXO folder, and there is our VPK folder. When we go through the USB connection, we open up our UXO folder. And that's all the folders that we were seeing on our PC not too long ago. So let's open that. Here is fingerprint.vpk. Select it. And it says, do you want to install this package? Hit yes. Installing. And would you like to continue the install, sorry. Hit yes again. And it's installing. Perfect. Let's go back home. And you should now see the fingerprint application there. And I apologize for the lighting. It's just so hard to light up this room, and the PS Vita and the camera just trying to read it, so it's a little bit of a pain. So the fingerprint does show all sorts of sensitive information, and I will be blocking some of that on here. Let's open that app up, and you should see just a little window that says starting up, blah blah blah. And here we want to go to the second option, which is our firmware and flags, right? Now at the top we'll see the current firmware, the previous firmware, and the factory firmware. Let's take a closer look there. Now our current firmware is 3.73 running H-encore 2, but it's not going to show H-encore 2 or anything like that. It's just going to run the firmware. So it says 373, and our previous firmware was 363. So that was the firmware that I got the Vita when I received it through the mail from the seller. It was on 3.63 firmware, and I had to update it to 3.73. And our factory firmware is 3.30, so 330. Now if you have something where it's like factory firmware 3.68 or 3.65, just downgrade to 3.65. If you're above 3.65, you're out of luck, and it's pretty rare to come across a Vita that won't have anything older, because I don't know, it just doesn't make sense for me to see someone with a Vita that is not able to do this, right, to go through the downgrade. But we do come across those consoles that are unable to do that. So hopefully you're able to go to 3.60. If you're not, well, you're just out of luck, and just might as well continue to use H-encore 2. Cross your fingers and pray and hope that someone will update Adrenaline to run on 3.73. Moving on. So now we're back on our desktop, and we're going to download a few things to get our Vita ready to downgrade. So head on over to the third or fourth link. I lost track. We're going to be going back to codedonut.com, and we're going to be downloading two different things. We're going to be downloading the official 3.60 firmware and the modoru.vpk. And since we're running on 3.73, we're going to be downloading this version here. So click on this link, and this will take us to github.com. This is version 2.1. So click on this link here, the modoru.vpk link. There we go, all ready to go. Back to codedonut.com. We will need the official 3.60 firmware, so let's click on mirror 1. And let's see if this link will work here. And it looks like it worked, so it's now downloading it. And finally, you will need an FTP client, and I like to use FileZilla because it's just easy to use. And you can click on this link here to take you to filezilla.com and download the FileZilla client here on all platforms. And you can choose either a different, obviously we're doing this on a Windows computer, so just try to use either the 64-bit or the 32-bit, depending on what you have running on your PC. Now the 3.60 update is going to take some time, so just be a little bit patient. Let's open up our folder here, showing our folder. And we're going to get rid of these three and move the Modoru. Actually, we'll just keep that there for now. And we will get our folder ready on our PS Vita. While we wait for the 3.60 firmware to download, we're going to be running our FileZilla real quick and get that all set up. So open up FileZilla. Here it is, and we will have to connect our Vita to it. And this basically allows us to view files and stuff wirelessly through the network. So whatever network your PC is on, your PS Vita must be on the same network in order for this to work and communicate with one another. Back on our Vita, we'll open up a Vita shell. And we want to, let's go back here and press start. And on the, whoops, press start again. Select button, we want to choose, oh man, I'm doing terrible here. FTP connection, press start again, and press select. Now you'll see a new window pop up saying FTP server is now running at whatever that is. That is the address we have to type into our FTP client, along with the last 4 digits here, the code, the 1337, which is our port number. Back on our desktop, on our host, we have to type in FTTP : / and I will turn this around real quick. And I have FTP : / let me do that in lowercase. And we have 10.0.0, and for the most part you should see the same on your Vita. So let's see here, can't really see, there we go, 10.0.0.206, and our port is going to be 1337. Quick connect, and it says could not parse server address. Okay, so I did something wrong here. Let's see. Oh, I made a simple mistake. I put FTTP, which is just FTP. So quick connect, and it says the server does not support FTP over TLS. If you continue your password files, say OK. And now you see all of your folders in your FTP client. Very good. And we're going to be opening up our UXO folder. Nice. So let's go into this folder. There we go. And we have our update ready to go. Let's get rid of this. So we have the modoru.vpk file ready to go, and our 3.60 firmware all downloaded. On our FTP client, we're going to be opening up the UXO folder and the data folder. There we go. And we're going to copy the Modoru VPK and the PSP2update.pup file, and just copy those over. And you can see the information down here in this window below. And that update is a little bit beefy, so it's 127 megabytes to copy over, so just be a little patient and wait for that to finish. Alright, so we're all done here, and we can go back on our Vita and disconnect from the FTP client, and let's find that VPK. Let's go to our UXO folder, go to data, and there's our Modoru VPK, so select that and run it. Hit yes. Nice. Now we're going to be copying the firmware. So let's select the firmware. We're going to press triangle, and we're going to copy this. Copied one file, hit OK, and we're going to go back to the app folder here, and under Modoru we're going to open that up and press triangle to paste that in. After it's done copying over, we're going to go back to our URO folder here, and we're going to be renaming our Thai folder. So let's hit triangle and we will hit rename, and I will rename this, let's see here, we'll do LOL. Hit yes, and now the Thai folder is renamed as LOL. Let's go back into our UXO folder and we'll do the same thing. So Modoru will not work if these folders are there. So let's hit that. I'm sorry. Let's hit triangle and we'll rename that. And we can go LOL again. Perfect. Let's go back and we want to press start and reboot our system. Okay, let's open back up, all rebooted, and now we're gonna run H-encore 2 again. So open that up. Now we're gonna be running H-encore 2 again to re-enable our custom firmware. So hit start and make sure to be holding the R button. Hit yes. Pink screen, no pink screen. So that failed that time. And it was probably because I was late on pressing the R button. So just make sure to hold down the R button. Okay, ready to go. We will now rerun H-encore 2. So hold down the R button. Open up H-encore 2, start. Hit yes. Pink screen, no pink screen, so it failed that time. And it will happen every once in a while, unfortunately. And what you can do is just power this off. Looks like I got the black screen of death, so we'll just hold that power button till that green light fades. There we go. And we'll just power that back on. And that's why we're doing the downgrade, so you don't have to go through this. Because with the 3.60 firmware, it's going to be permanent and we don't have to worry about this. Let's go back down to H-encore 2, open that up, hold R button, press start. Hit yes. There's the pink screen, perfect. Now we can go back home. We can actually exit out of here. Now let's go into our settings and we will enable our unsafe homebrew under Henkaku settings. Check mark that. Go back home. Open up Modoru. And now we are good to go. So it says firmware information, current firmware 3.73, factory firmware 3.30, and target firmware is 3.60. Do you want to downgrade from firmware 3.73 to firmware 3.60? Hit X to confirm, hit R to exit. So let's hit X. This software will make permanent modifications to your Vita. If anything goes wrong, there is no recovery. So just make sure you guys are fully aware of that. That's why you have to have a fully charged console. Press X to accept these terms and start the installation. Hit R to not accept and exit. And now we will see the magic happen. So one of the reasons why I have this cup here, because it does help a little bit, right? Very nice. Okay, system update, please wait. Now the system is updating. Installing the system software. Do not power off the system during the installation. So just don't touch it. Don't even look at it. Just let it do its thing. Very good. Looks like it's finished. And your Vita will reboot. Nice. Let's open up. And let's go to our settings. And we'll go to our system. Let me move this cup out of the way. And here's our system information 3.60. Yes, we did it. Now we're going to move on to installing Henkaku exploit, Henkaku Enso, which is the permanent custom firmware. Okay, let's go back home and we will open up our web browser. Whoa. Yeah, I'm having issues here because for some reason my lamps give off a lot of heat and it kind of annoys the Vita, and the touchscreen gets a little finicky. At the top, we're going to tap and we're going to enter an address, and this is going to be, let's see here, HTTP. Yeah, my touchscreen is not working now. It's been, whoops. Let's go back to our address, and we're going to be going through HTTPS. Here we go. And we're going to type in the following, and I'll have that up on the screen for you real quick. Henkaku. Sounds like a character in an anime show. .xyz/go. Just like that. Perfect. Hit accept. And it should automatically download and take you to this new window, and it downloads the firmware and also installs molecular shell. But since we already have Vita shell, we don't really, you see what's going on there? Yeah, that's the touchscreen. Let's go into our settings, and we have the Henkaku right there. So we now have the firmware installed, and we will go to, whoops, enable unsafe homebrew and spoof version. This is very important, guys. Make sure that this is set to 3.73, like that. Enter, go back, and I can change the behavior here. There we go. Whoops. We're all set there. Okay, let's go to our Vita shell. Whoops. Touchscreen is driving me crazy. Let's open that up. And we are going to connect via USB connection. There we go. Press start again and press select. And we will now connect our cable to our Vita. Alright, head on over to the github.com/Henkaku Enso, and we're going to be downloading the version 1.1 enso.vpk. Let's click on that. And let's show in our folder. Perfect. And on our Vita USB drive, we're going to copy that over to this. And we are basically done there. Back on our Vita, we'll disconnect. And we will find our UXO folder. And there is Enso VPK. Run that. Hit yes. Installing. Perfect. Now we'll go back home. And there is Enso. So let's open that up. Hit OK. So now we brought up this little window here, and we have the built on the top. And it says this software will make permanent modifications to your Vita. If anything goes wrong, there is no recovery, not even with a hardware flasher. The creators provide this tool as is without warranty or any kind expressed or implied, and cannot be held liable for any damage done. Press circle to accept these terms or any other key to not accept. So let's press circle. There we go. And now it says press cross to install, reinstall the hack, or triangle to uninstall the hack, square to fix boot configuration, or circle to exit without doing anything. So let's press X. Oh, lost you there. Press any key to reboot. And that's it. We are now done. So you should see the new logo boot up, and now you're running permanent custom firmware. Isn't that amazing? And we can see our applications. Very good. Let's go to our settings, and we don't have to worry about those two type folders we renamed because they're going to be recreated. So here's our Henkaku settings. Anytime you see Henkaku settings, you're good to go. And now we have permanent custom firmware 3.60 running. And now you can install Adrenaline, which is going to be so much fun. Let's go into our system settings. Whoop, wrong button. There it is, 3.60. Awesome. So that is basically it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you found this helpful. I know this was really long, but I wanted to take my time and make sure that everyone was up to speed, and that way you can take your time in doing this hack onto your Vita. Now you can enjoy all sorts of fun stuff on your console. So that is it for this one, guys. I hope I was helpful in this video. I wanted to make a really nice paced guide for you, that way you can take your time and understand everything that we're doing. So that is it. Any questions, comment down below. As always, I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.